Hey there YouTube, I'm Ikitsu, this is the Ikitsu Times, welcome to my channel, welcome to a little bit of Sins of Solar Empire 2. So today we're talking about the Progenitor Mothership, which is the Advent Colony ship. As you can see, it is very homeworld inspired. This is what I would recommend for newer players with Advent if they're playing against the AI, and potentially against other people as well. It's an extremely potent ship, and one that I think is very user-friendly. It doesn't require as much effort or work to get this to do really powerful stuff for you compared to some of your other ships that are out there. So let's take a look at the stats here.
Is it time?
So the Mothership has 500 durability, it's got 4,800 shield points, 810 armor points, 4,500 hull points, and it's got 265 antimatter. For hidden statistics, we're looking at 700 maximum speed and 55 armor strength. The Mothership is a little bit flimsy, having only 55 armor strength and only 810 armor points, making it a little bit on the weaker side. It's also got a fairly even distribution of shield points and hull points, which is fine, but it's not the best in the world. For armaments, we're looking at one Strikecraft squad. It's got 2 heavy plasmas dealing 5 damage per second at 750 pierce each for a total of 10 damage per second. It's got 2 PD lasers doing 2.5 damage per second at 0 pierce each for a total of 5 damage per second. And it's got 7 heavy lasers doing 7.5 damage per second with 300 pierce for a total of 52.5 I believe, damage per second on that one. So the nice thing about the Progenitor Mothership stats here, in terms of its offensive capability, is that these are very good guns for expanding. If we take a look at their placement as well, we can see that we got, I believe, the 2 plasmas on the top here, and then we got 3 on each side for the heavy lasers, and then the point defenses are over here and here. The point defenses are not great, and they're not really well placed. They almost never actually defeat any missiles. However, they add in a little bit of something. I just couldn't say that they're any good. The last laser cannon goes on the bottom here. All of the guns are extremely capable of pointing at a single target directly in front of the mothership, giving this good focused fire. It's also capable of engaging a couple targets that are off to its sides as well if it has to, but generally speaking, the Progenitor Mothership should be used to fight targets that are directly in front of it. But generally, the ships that are guarding these starting planets are very susceptible to the fire from the Mothership, making this good for expanding into them quickly. It's way better at it than the Aken, and it's also actually a little bit better than the Evacuator in some respects there, because the Evacuator, while it's much better into capital ships, it doesn't have the good focus fire that the Progenitor Mothership does into lighter vessels there. For abilities, it does unfortunately have the weakest of the Colonize abilities. This one increases your focus level for your planets as you level it, going up to 3 free focus levels. Not only is this a stat that is not present on all planets, it's not even present at the highest level in your most common planet, that being asteroids. It just isn't really that important in the early game. The mining level is much stronger, and the ability to get free logistics levels is much stronger during the early game, because you can do stuff with those. The focus level is better in sort of a later part of the game, once you've got enough unity to start using those abilities. And all that Colonize really does as a result of that is save you a little tiny bit of money, but it is still enough that I actually have started taking it. It's only because the other ability here, Unity Meditation, really just doesn't help out enough for me to really want to take it there, and this saves me from getting an additional second colony ship there. So I could get this, and I could just get one of the other colony ships and call it a day. That'll let me spread fast enough under most circumstances there. If I don't take this, I have to get 2, which is a little bit expensive, and it takes up a bunch of my fleet supply. So you never really bother taking this up to 3. I mean, you can if you really want to. Super late game, that theoretically could be okay, but honestly, I don't really like it in the way that it works. The other ones are way better, in my opinion, there. The next ability, though, is what makes this so strong, shield regeneration. If you stripped out the rest of the kit and just gave the Mothership this, it would actually still basically be as strong as it is, because it's loaded everything into this one ability. It does make it very monotonous, it does make it very one-dimensional, but still, it does make it an excellent ship overall. Has a cooldown of 20 seconds, an antimatter cost of 125, scaling down by 25 per level down to a minimum of 75 at level 3. And it has a shield restore rate ability. So basically, everything that is in this sort of circle here gets its shield restored. The radius actually does increase as you level this, and it basically doubles by the time it's maximum level. Everything that's in that bubble is going to get, at the start, 25, and then 37.5, and then 50 shields per second for 8 seconds. The duration stays the same as well, so the uptime remains constant. This doesn't stack if you have multiple motherships. The way that you would use this if you got multiples is you'd have one cast, and then after 8 seconds you'd have another cast, and then you'd have another cast. So you do need 3 to keep this up 100% of the time. Definitely worth it if you can get that. But in any event, you've got the shield restore rate of 25, 37.5, and 50, but it also scales off of psi power. I believe it starts off at 25% of your psi power and then scales upwards to 45% of your psi power. I do wish it got up to 50. That would be just a cleaner number to work with. But you roughly get half your psi power added to the shield restore rate. Now, typically speaking, for caster type ships, I think that Advent can really easily get them up to 300. Earlier game, you're looking at a pretty easy 200. That's not that difficult for any Advent player to get to. At 200, you're getting an additional 90 psi power, or sorry, you're getting an additional 90 shields per second. Added that to the 50, you're getting 140. If you've got the 300, you're looking at 185 shields per second. That's really, really powerful. This is what makes the ship so good if you're playing as Advent into the AI, and probably also against real people as well. But 185 shields per second, you have to sort of consider how many ships you're outpacing in terms of that shield restore. If your ship is getting shot at by approximately 18 kobolds, then shield regeneration at that point in time is completely negating it. If that ship is getting shot at by 18 kobolds and they've also got a Iconis Guardian defending them, then you're depleting the damage of 36 enemy kobolds. That's a huge number of enemy ships that you're just completely wiping out the damage from, giving shield regeneration this really ridiculous power to extend the longevity and staying power of your fleet. During the earlier levels, you're obviously not going to be reaching those kind of things, but by the time you take your first engagement, you can pretty easily get shield regeneration up to level 2. That's going to be very, very consistent. Oftentimes you can get it up to level 3, but level 2, you're still looking at your base value of plus 9 from the... Or actually, I think it changes to plus 12 at that point in time from the Votary Siphon. And then you've got the additional plus 32. So you're looking at approximately... Or sorry, 37. You're looking at approximately 49 damage per second that you're restoring. That's approximately 5 kobolds. And 10 kobolds if you've got an Iconis Guardian. So you're restoring that amount of damage per second during the early game when both fleets are fairly small. That's making it so that your opponent is having a really, really rough time actually focus fire killing your ships down. Because even with focus fire, that's a huge amount of damage that you're negating. That's a very, very difficult amount to get past there. Meanwhile, you're reducing his mass because your damage is going through unmitigated because your disciples are able to do that full damage against them. It makes it so that, like, if you're fighting fleet versus fleet during the early game, you've got your mothership, it's doing damage into the enemy. It's capable of really making it so that your opponent has to really, really outmass you before they can start out trading you. Into the late game, it's good. Into the mid game, it's good. It's just always a very, very powerful ability to be able to restore that much shields that constantly. Now, to actually get that full effect, you do need to have 3 motherships. If you don't have that, you're going to have downtime on this, and it's going to reduce the effective shield restore rate per second by quite a lot, honestly. But once you've got 3 of them and you've got that up permanently, virtually unstoppable fleet at that point in time. Unity Meditation is your last ability. The reason that this is stronger than Colonize is because Unity Meditation, they both save you just a little bit of money there, but Unity Meditation also saves you on planetary slots. Hypothetically, if you're on a super hyper-tight map, what you can do is you can get a level 3 Progenitor Mothership, have it take up 50 supply, and you could give it 1 level of shield regeneration and then 2 levels of Unity Meditation. And then you can sort of like level this up as it needs to be. Maybe you go 2 more levels of shield regeneration, bringing it up to 3 and then 2. Or maybe you go for like the 2-3 split there for the Unity Meditation, getting you up to 3 of that. This would basically make it so you don't have to put Temples of Unity around your planets, which can save you a whole bunch of those orbital slots, which is way stronger than the amount of money that you saved by not having to pay for your focus levels, which, while they can get pretty expensive into the late game, it doesn't really save you that much money getting the free focus levels. So I don't actually think this is like much of a contest. The only reason I really would say that this is worth it is because during the super early game, you're not going to be using your Unity anyway. You can't afford to use those abilities. So you might as well get that little bit of extra development on the planet early. and then sort of rely on getting more unity later on in the game. Still, though, if I get these past level 1, like I'm not getting these at the start. This is my like 3rd ship or something like that. I'm not going to get any levels into Colonize. I'm just going to not bother with that. It's going to be like 3 shield regeneration, 2 unity meditation, resurrect or rebirth, and that's going to sort of be that. Obviously, you get this just as a part for the course once you hit the maximum levels, but it's definitely not a good ability as far as that goes. So let's take a look at the last ability here, Rebirth. This one has a cooldown of 6 minutes, antimatter cost of 250, and it resurrects a bunch of ships. This only works on sub-capitals and non-buildings. So all of your corvettes, frigates, and cruisers inside that gravity well. This has the range of the entire gravity well. So this one is extremely, extremely powerful under certain circumstances. The problem with it is that you have to have ships that are dying, and ideally that's not happening too much. But if you revolve your strategy around like having a small number of really, really high-level motherships that just sort of pop in, they don't expose themselves to too much danger, maybe they stay in the back and just use their shield restore against enemies where they can, but otherwise stay out of trouble there. You've got the ability to sort of like pop in and use Rebirth to bring back a huge chunk of ships. The amount of supply that you get back when you use a Rebirth is 100 plus your 1-1 on psi power. So, like I said, typically super late game or even fairly late game, easy to get 300, fairly common to get 200, not really that hard to get 300. So you can easily get back 300 supply of ships per mothership, and you could fairly easily get back 400. That's not too difficult either. Either way, though, that's a fairly large chunk of economy that you're essentially getting out of the mothership, because these are not conditional ships like with the Takadaran and its ability to summon ships, 400 supply or 500 supply of ships with its level 10 ability. The Rebirth ability is just giving you 400 supply of ships permanently that are just under your control, which is really, really powerful. The problem is that you're still subject to, of course, your supply cap limits. You have to have had ships destroyed, so it's much more conditional than the Takadaran, but it's that level of power swing. So one of the things that Advent can kind of do is they can swing a battle where they've got just a ton of things like Destra Crusaders and Iconis Guardians and not really a whole ton of capitals mixed in there. They're just hiding. Those run in. They snipe a couple of capital ships. The motherships come in. They all cast Rebirth. And then you just keep destroying capital ships while your motherships are now in the fight, and they're keeping your ships alive a little bit more effectively. And you functionally lost nothing, but you've destroyed like thousands of supply worth of ships over the course of those 2 fights there. And by the time that fight ends, maybe you cast another set of Rebirths even. But you can basically make it so that your sub-capital fleets are extremely dangerous for your opponent if they've got their capital ships there. Because you can sort of go in, you can destroy their capital ships, you can move on to the next thing, just keep going from capital to capital to capital, destroying them all. And your opponent can only really try and like destroy all of your Destras or whatever as fast as they possibly can to avoid losing those capital ships there. And if that's happening, your opponent has a couple choices. They have to spend a ton of resources to try and get those capital ships back, or they have to invest really quickly in counters to those ships there. Like they have to build a whole bunch of stylats to try and kill all those Destra Crusaders that you're otherwise bringing back to life. But that doesn't stop you from killing the capital ships. So you can see why this would sort of provide a bit of a problem for opponents that are trying to scale into that hyper late game where they're replacing their ships with capital ships. They just keep losing capital ships over and over and over again. They're spending a lot more resources than the Advent player who's only losing sub-capitals, and they're losing them for free. They're not even paying for them. You can end up in a situation where the Advent player is capable of switching over to that all-capital ship composition a little bit easier, or they just don't need to. They just keep grinding into their opponent and throwing like 2,000 supply of ships into the enemy. As soon as that one dies off, they resurrect it all. They keep pushing at full speed. I think that that's something that's really, really hard to deal with for a lot of people. In any event, though, that's all the abilities on the Progenitor Mothership. Let's take a look at the hostility research here. So this is a ship that, of course, really, really wants to hit level 3. If you're only getting level 2, that's like okay, because you're going to get to level 3 a bit faster that way, but they really, really, really care about ascension rights. Being able to use the level 2 version of the shield generation is just massive for the ship here. The psi power upgrades are all extremely good for this one, as well as a lot of the items that are in that tree there. And the Iconis Guardian is uniquely good alongside the Mothership there. It's one of the most powerful sort of combinations as far as ships goes. For the energy tree, I actually think that it's better to have the flat values for the Mothership. The burst is good, and there is some interesting synergy with the Mothership and the shield bursts, but hopefully you're not actually losing all of your shields. Just having like enough shield value and enough shield regeneration can make it so that you just never lose your shields in the first place. Of course, for the sub-capital ships that the Mothership is helping protect, both become a little bit more likely to go off there. You're likely to, for example, have a Disciple that's taking a bunch of damage from Cobalts or whatever. It's getting repaired back up by the Mothership there. It loses all its shields, but it's still hanging on there. It keeps bouncing back up and down thanks to the Mothership. And then it gets its shield burst off, at which point it's sort of fine there. That can easily happen when you've got access to Mothership. The synergistic reactions, the other antimatter techs, these are quite good for the ship. It does run out quite quickly. Even at maximum level, you're looking at 75 antimatter for every 20 seconds. That doesn't give you enough time to restore that amount of antimatter. So you definitely do need to have access to this. You do even want to have a little bit more regeneration later down the line from something, giving it the Brilliance Array bonus. That'll get it basically to the point where it can fully cast without ever stopping. But prior to that add-on there, it's a little bit rough for the ship to maintain its antimatter deposits, especially at level 1. For other abilities here that we'd want to get, the energy tree, like the energy from the lasers does matter for the ship, but it's not that important. This is not a DPS ship, and its weapons are not really going to scale into the late game. These are just for clearing out your opening moves where you're trying to colonize planets there. So, like, the refined laser cannons is super important for this thing. After that, it matters a lot less, just because your weapons for this don't really matter. Plasma, same sort of thing there. The way that you would think about this ship is that it's a support ship. So whatever it is that you're choosing as your main damage dealer, like let's say that you decide your main damage dealer is going to be Exoria's in that playthrough, you would then focus on beams, even though the Mothership obviously doesn't care about beams at all. The Mothership is ancillary damage. Further down, you've got the substance tree, you've got the hull points, and you've got the armor. These are all really good upgrades for the Mothership, just because you're going to have those moments where the shield's been dropped down. You're still going to be trying to restore them as best as you can with the Mothership, but this means that you can get that respite from getting that shield burst. And as long as they've got more armor and they've got more hull points, it makes it way easier to get into a position where you can do that. Still, these are the lesser upgrades as far as we're concerned here. It's really the shield point upgrades that matter the most. For Harmony Research, you've got Protection of the Unity for Advent Reborn. This is really, really good with Motherships. You're adding on shield regeneration on top of the shield burst, on top of the shield restoration. All of that sort of cycling together makes it so that the Mothership is capable of not only surviving a lot itself, but everything that's protecting as well. Basically, every time you think you've got its shields down, one of those three things triggers to cause it to restore a bunch of the shields, and you just never get through them. You can basically just have your shields up basically forever as Advent if you're really sort of focused on that. Especially if you've also got access to something like the Iconis Guardian, of course, in there. Now, for Advent Wrath, you've got the Psi Power bonus. This does actually a similar thing to this if you're using the Mothership, because instead of getting it from the Protection of Unity, you're now getting the Psi Power into your shield restore from the Mothership. That gives you extra shields through that way. So it ends up being fairly similar in that sort of sense there. A little bit lower than the numbers from Protection of the Unity overall from one Mothership, but a little bit better if you've got three Motherships, of course. And it's also better in that it helps boost your Rebirth ability there. For Advent Wrath, you've also got Fear of the Unity. That doesn't really matter at all to the Mothership itself. That only matters if the ships that it's healing up care about that. So the next thing, Unity. Advent Reborn actually has a lot of things that kind of don't matter for the Mothership itself. Since the Mothership is a support utility type of vehicle that's really here to be using shield regeneration and rebirth, whether or not any of these are useful is going to come down to the other ship that is associated with it. One of the things that you can definitely get is if you're in a situation where you're defending a really tough fight, you're in one of your systems, your opponent is really just laying into you, but you've been also just defending adequately that entire time. Use Resurrection instead of Rebirth. What'll happen is you'll swing the fight with a good Resurrection, you'll get a whole ton of ships back, and you'll be able to push your opponent really, really hard. If you get to the situation where you've beaten them and they've been forced back and you've destroyed a whole ton of their ships and what have you, and your ships are back to life thanks to Resurrection, if you chase after your opponent's fleet there, you can get into that same fight in their gravity well. This only works in your own culture, but once you've sort of moved into that enemy sort of area there, you can get into that fight and you'll have Rebirth still saved up, so you can use that again, making it so that you've got 2 Resurrections in a row, making it so your opponent has really made no headway whatsoever, even if they thought they destroyed a whole ton of your ships there. Cleanse, I think, also has that shield on shield on shield on shield sort of effect there that can make it so that your fleet just really does not die. And of course, like Recall, just helps if your fleet has to recall in general. But typically speaking, I wouldn't really pair this with anything in particular there. Sacrifice, yet again, I also wouldn't say specifically goes well with the Mothership. For Advent Wrath, you've got access to the same sort of situation there. None of the things that you've got there are super good concentrated onto the Mothership. If you're in a situation where the Mothership is your best capital ship and you've got a whole bunch of ships clustered around it, Avatar could be a really good thing to cast on it. Getting that extra 100 psi power, giving you the extra 45 shields per second, does add a lot of potential to a Mothership early on to a fight, especially if it's about to use Rebirth. That would also be very, very powerful in that situation. However, it's not necessarily your strongest target. It's going to be contextual as to who you cast it on. One of the really nice things about Avatar, though, and the Mothership is that the 30% damage isn't absorbed by just the Mothership. It gets spread out to all your other ships as well. So if you want to add the damage to a Radiance, but you want to get the psi power onto the Mothership, feel free to just throw that all onto the Mothership, and it'll be able to restore all the shields of everything really, really fast. Meanwhile, your Radiance is going to start laying out a lot more hurt. But I don't think it's the best target for that sort of situation there. The other things that you've got access to, Chastise and Fury, nothing really specific about the Mothership. It's going to come down to what other ships you've got in your fleet in that case. So as far as builds go, there's only 2 builds that I can really see myself using, and 1/3 kind of meme-y build. The first one is your first Mothership. Like, you start the game, you start off with a Mothership, which I think is a very, very viable start and a very good one. You start off with Colonize in that case, and then you start leveling shield regeneration as fast as you can. Once you got 2 levels of that, you take the Unity Meditation, you get shield regeneration, then you take Rebirth. After that, you're going to cap out Unity Meditation, and you're just going to Colonize when you fill out your levels there. In this case, you're just mostly taking Colonize so that you can get out there and colonize ships or planets a little bit faster, but you're really still leaning in on the shield regeneration as your main source of utility. In that particular case, this build and the second build are the same, so let's go over that here. The other one is, like, you start off level 3 here, you go 2 levels of shield regeneration, and you take 1 level of Unity Meditation. This is, again, doing the same sort of thing there, but it doesn't have to worry about colonizing planets. And this is especially true if you're getting multiple Motherships. Your first one might have colonized. You definitely do not need 3 colonized ships there. But for this type of build here, we're looking at being a caster. We're looking at getting the Harmony Circuit. We're looking at getting the Psionic Dynamo. And after that, I would, generally speaking, consider getting survivability. In that case, we're getting probably the Psychokinetic Plating and the Synchronous Shield. If you're not feeling confident about Psychokinetic Plating, you can get Structural Force Fields. But what we're trying to do here is actually really boost up our armor strength, not the armor points. The armor points goes up to a decent amount. But because our base values are low, we're not getting a huge amount out of that. What happens, though, is that the armor strength gets so ridiculously high, combined with the sort of like shield points restore coming in, that the armor doesn't take very much damage, and then the shield burst comes in, and then we're back at like full shields basically. And because that's sort of happening, we can end up in a situation where we're just taking a few scratches to the armor points over and over and over again. We're getting healed back up by Iconis Guardians using Mend, and because the armor strength is so high, we never go down into our hull points. That's sort of the hope with that. If we don't feel confident about that, and we feel like we are going to end up in our hull points, then Structural Force Fields just gives you better numbers. But armor strength really, really does help with this kind of build here. The other way that we could sort of build the same one is we could go for the Harmony Circuit, the Psionic Dynamo, and the Essence Reservoir. This is hard to use because it's hard to get the Essence Reservoir to proc if we're going really hard into shield regeneration and we just absolutely want to keep casting. but we can deliberately cause like some of our ships to explode if we really want to. We can be using like cleanse on them. We could be using our the Eradicate Titan or something like that, and sacrificing our own ships to a certain degree to make it so that Essence Reservoir is getting forced to fill. Or it could just be in a situation where our opponent just has to fight our lesser ships to one degree or another to get rid of them because they're posing too much of a threat for them to ignore. But in that particular case, we're still getting Psychic plating. We do have like the potential to have an absolute crazy amount of side power with this sort of build, but I think it's dangerous to sort of rely on that type of build, generally speaking. I would rather go with the Psychic plating Synchronous Shield. The other thing that we would consider is the very, very early game. In that case, we're looking at Antimatter Pod, Plasma Nova Generator, and Shield Battery all actually being really, really good for this thing. The Plasma Nova Generator is actually quite good for this because it's got a plasma weapon and it's tough and it's capable of just flying into the enemy formation, getting rid of them with a bunch of area effect damage. The damage on this isn't good enough to really get rid of too much stuff, but it's okay there. But the antimatter pod, you just keep it on there for the 20% regeneration rate. That gets it so you're using shield regeneration way faster. And shield battery lets you stack an additional set of more shield bullshit on top of all the shield bullshit that you're already doing, making it so that you just really, really don't die. You'd think that consecration inducer would be good for that sort of thing, but unfortunately it's got a 6-minute cooldown, which is just too long. It doesn't really work out in my opinion there. Although it can be very, very strong under certain circumstances. So yeah, that's that build. The latter build, that's kind of just a stupid one. If you're really cramped on planets, like you're just playing somewhere where everyone gets like 1.5 planets for some reason, and you just absolutely need more orbital slots, what you can do is you can sacrifice 50 of your military command, of your supply there, and get a level 3 Progenitor Mothership out of the gate there. And you can get 2 levels of Unity Meditation and 1 level of Shield Regeneration. In this case, we're not getting any items, and we're just going to sort of keep them cornered until we can get access to Mass Transcendence. Once we get Mass Transcendence, they're useful to send into battle after we've like leveled them up to 6 or something like that. But this lets us get our Unity up to basically full by sacrificing a little bit of our fleet supply just so that we can have these sitting around there. They're very expensive this way, and this is more of a desperation move. Most maps you shouldn't need to do this. However, if you just have to have orbital slots, that's how you would do it as Advent. Not really the best way, and it's not the most versatile orbital slots that you're getting out of it, but it's better than nothing. If you are in that sort of situation there. Again, if we're doing this, we take nothing as far as items go. Still, though, that's everything I've got to say about the Progenitor Mothership. Use this if you're a newer player. Just have a big ball of like Disciples and Iconis Guardians against the early game AI. The shield regeneration is going to keep your ships alive way longer than they deserve to. You can throw in some Acolytes if you're having trouble keeping your antimatter relatively okay. It does actually guzzle through antimatter very, very quickly, so you can use that if you're needing that. But yeah, no, this thing on the defense is probably one of the best ships out there. It's capable of just keeping your ships alive for a really long time. It's keeping your star bases and your turrets alive longer. It's just really, really good, and I highly, highly recommend taking it. So anyway, hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, hope to see you guys all next time.